brief about my experiences, and I have structured this session in these 4 sections. Obviously, the first point is to introduce myself as well as the product, because even in the audience, you can take my inputs and my experiences with a pinch of salt. Subsequently, we'll walk you through how the B2B landscape is changing with respect to the user experience and customer experience. We have built this tool, which is WebEngage, over last 9 years, doing different pivots, and we'll walk you through how the B2B landscape is changing for not only for the end users, but also for the organizations who are looking for these options. And finally, the last point is how do we get there? Is how do we build consumer-grade B2B tools? First of all, thanks for inviting me and thanks for having me here. I am Ankit Utreja. I am co-founder and CTO of WebEngage. WebEngage is a marketing automation cloud meant for consumer companies. It's a B2C marketing automation cloud, and we sell it as a SaaS-based solution, and mainly to consumer companies, where product teams and marketing team within these consumer companies use our tool to retain their end customers well. And when it comes to retention, the retention journey is entirely delegated to WebEngage to take care of. So if you have a website or if you have a mobile app, whether it's an Android, iOS, doesn't matter, you use WebEngage to build a sort of CRM, which stores everything from a first step of a user journey. An anonymously user searching from Google Ad Search and landing up on your website or installing your app. And then from there on, how do we take him ahead in the life cycle is what WebEngage helps marketing team and product team to increase their retention very well. My own experiences in building this tool will be sharing in the subsequent slides. The tool is all about doing a heavy lifting job, integrating with all the online properties that a business has. And that essentially makes the integration point very, very important for us. We store a lot of data points. So if you are using a travel app or an e-commerce app or a fintech app, the chances are that WebEngage is integrated over there. And if you think about any activity that you are doing on the website or on the app, any click, any tap, anything is being signaled to WebEngage, because marketing team and product team then sits on all these plethora of data, very heavy data volume, to create meaningful communications, targeted communications, triggered communications out of this. So our whole experiences with the business, the way we deal with is as developer community, where the integration happens, and subsequently product team and marketing team, and it depends upon vertical to vertical and the size of the company, who takes care of retention as a problem statement. And over there, we deal with different plethora of personas who use the tool for different purposes, but end of the day, their aim is to increase retention. A very simple screenshot that I have that you can see on your screen. This is actually what we do. We allow our customers to create orchestration journeys, the way we developers create workflows on Visuals, right, before converting those algorithms into our own programs. This is how we let marketing teams and product teams to create their communication strategies. And in a way, in a nutshell, what we try to do is, be it B2B, B2C, smaller company, larger company, we try to abstract the entire communication from your product itself. So whether it's a transactional communication, newsletter communication, triggered communications, don't send the communication from the product, abstract it out and delegate it to a platform like WebEngage is what our idea is. Giving you a snapshots of these products, because it will give you an idea of what we come from, what is our background. Internally itself, we are a small company based out of India, headquartered in Mumbai, and I have another development center in Bangalore as well. And for these entire operations to work, being a SaaS company, we rely on many SaaS companies. And these are just a very few of them. When I get a list from my accountant on the monthly basis, there are some 70, 80 different tools that we pay, and all these are SaaS-based tools. These are few that we use. Most of these you would have seen getting listed on the Nasdaq. Gives us a little proud. Yeah. But the entire inspiration and experience that we get from these tools is also part of what we have come to know about how to build SaaS, consumer-grade SaaS applications. Coming to what is the need for B2B tools to shape up as and give consumer grade experiences, there is in fact from all the dimensions. You know, for our B2B tool, and there are different personas whenever we talk about B2B, whether it's an enterprise segment or a mid-market or a SMB. There are people who are decision makers and the people who are operate, and in certain segments, in certain niches, there is an overlap, obvious overlap. But in most of the cases, the operators who are using the tool day to day and the people who are making the decisions most of the time vary. And the people who are using the tool, it makes a difference, because in today's life, when his day starts with looking at those fancy apps, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, or reading news nuggets and short stories, and then coming to office with this particular application doesn't make the day good for them. Their expectations are high. It's not 1990s or 2000 that we are dealing with. Their expectations are generally high. And that's where the end user also has the expectation, where they would like to see a very good quality experience in the tools that they are using day in and day out. And any kind of operational optimization actually works a lot, not only in the favor of the end user, but as an opportunity for the players like us as well. On the other side of it, when it comes to businesses, right, the decision making has always been skewed, but there is a shift, if you see, because operators are now becoming more part of decision making. Even for a tool like WebEngage, when we pitch, when we compete, and when there are POCs going on, when there are trials going on, there are a whole gamut of people who decide what marketing automation tool to buy. And there are people whose daily job would be to create campaigns in triggered manners, create campaigns in ad hoc manners, depending upon what their marketing need is. And how efficiently can they create campaigns? How efficiently does this platform allow them to find out, what is the right user base to target? And all those nuances are actually operational in nature. And the moment you make this operations better from experience, keeping end user in mind, it also helps us win the stake, because even the B2B SaaS, the selling exercise, the marketing exercise is also shaping up, and it's also changing. It's more word of mouth, which is very helpful for players like us. And we can give competition to the incumbents, enterprise incumbents, in that particular manner. And we have seen this shift that is happening, where people are now talking about user experiences. The reason primarily is businesses are also now understanding that, enterprise tools, which were generally older or which have become bigger because they have acquired a lot many tools in their own umbrella to grow bigger in size, and nothing wrong with that approach. But when it comes to the businesses who are customers themselves, they have started to realize that it's okay to fit a smaller tool or a niche tool in their kitty, which does one thing but does it very, very well. And primarily the shift that is happening is because most of the platforms are now getting open, though there are SaaS companies, there are private tools and private companies, but data doesn't hold in a silo. It's very easier to combine 2-3 tools and get few use cases done. And if there is a tool which does one thing well, it's okay to adopt for organizations as well. And that's where, it becomes easier for SaaS companies as well, coming out of India or elsewhere, to start picking up those niches, solve one small problem, but do it very, very well, and then start growing your own umbrella. But grow in a way which was not done earlier. Grow in a way where where you still do one thing right, and I will come to that later on. And subsequently, since there are few areas in the entire processes, whether it's marketing or fintech or your education or your HR processes, if there is one thing that can be done by one tool right, it's a very big problem that a business can tackle. That essentially saves, with the SaaS-based tools having shorter integration cycles. And that only happens when you start focusing on the UX, keeping personas in mind, I will come to that later on. But it is also helping businesses to reduce those training modules, training manuals. We deal with mid-market as well as enterprise companies throughout, mainly mid-market. But at times when we deal with enterprises, there are a few lessons that we also get to know. When the conversation altogether changes, so you are evaluating a product which is marketing automation, and there are a few things, this and that, which keeps on happening. But end of the day, it all happens, one thing that stands out pretty drastically is when you sell to enterprises, there is, what does the training module look like? How would you train my managers? And how does that whole program look like? And you need to actually lay out the entire plan of onboarding. Onboarding not only the people who are going to use the tool, but entire onboarding depending on persona to persona, and lay out the training so that train the trainer model is also applicable in their organization, and becomes very important because for enterprise companies, whichever tool that you are selling, in whichever vertical that you are selling, even if it's a learning platform, it's very, very important for enterprise to understand when we are adopting this particular tool. Generally, the life cycle remains 3-year contract, 5-year contract. But it's very, very important that when it comes into the organization, people are familiar with it, and it takes whatever times, 7 days, 14 days, 2 months for the training, but everything is formalized in nature. With SaaS-based tools, when you start focusing on UX and you try to explain that it doesn't take too much time, it is also a very value addition for the businesses to opt for the solution. And these are certain forces which makes B2B tool to go forward. And why this landscape has been laggard with respect to user experience, I think there are pretty natural reasons, I would say. And with regards to the experience that B2C products can provide, the generally landscape and the constraint that B2B lives in is very, very different. If you remember when I introduced WebEngage, right, I mentioned that we are a marketing automation suite for B2C companies. Now, we are also a SaaS-based company helping people solve their retention problem, but we are very focused on the consumer company. The reason primarily is a B2B company's marketing needs vary a lot from what B2C companies' marketing needs is. And that's why there are the two domains are very, very different from the user experience perspective, from marketing perspective, and a lot many other perspectives. B2B tools are generally complex because they deal with businesses, and when you deal with businesses, there are a lot many things, right? When you pay for your Swiggy, you don't worry about GST, how it is written, what is it. It just works. But when you're a B2B, you need to understand and you're buying a product, there are a lot many things that goes on the finance side itself. How is the billing happening? Is it an online billing? Is it a recurring billing? Is it an offline billing? What is the net period? What is the credit period? What is one-time fee? When does the integration happen? When does the billing start? Just one single thing has so many complications in it. And when you go deeper into the B2B side, data security lies everywhere. But on the business side, data security plays a major role. And depending upon vertical your business operates in, whether it's a healthcare or any other, there are different data regulations. What kind of data can this platform ingest? How is the security defined? Who in my platform, who in my business can access this data? An entire authentication, authorization, security, vulnerability testing comes into picture, which makes things difficult. Most importantly, we tell on the consumer side, right? This tool does one thing, but does one thing right, and it's the right way to look at it. If you have Instagram, it probably does one thing right with the photograph, but does it pretty solid so that it gets all the traction, and that's how TikTok and all other adoption has happened. Why don't we see it in B2B? It's very, very difficult. First of all, for businesses who are building or the players who are building the product, it becomes very difficult to define what is that one thing. Even if you ask me what is that one thing, it keeps on changing, it keeps on growing, and we need to define very cautiously what is that one thing. And we keep a very good focus on what that one thing. And one thing doesn't mean just one thing. It's one focus area that you have to focus on, and rest everything goes out of your focus area. For us, it's a mid-market consumer companies for retention marketing. Anything in this particular umbrella is for us is one thing. Anything outside is not. If there are not many marketing landscape, if you see, it's a very wide, and retention is just a smaller piece of the entire marketing automation. But we are just focused on that smaller piece because for an organization like us, there are ample opportunities within the retention marketing automation space. And we want to do this retention, solving the retention for consumer companies, just do it right. And primarily, there are other reasons. Change is anyways difficult for end users. Even for us, when we roll out any changes on the user interface, we take time. We do so many rollouts across different segments, collect feedback, and then go ahead with it. The reason is and which is very, very true, right? People who are using the B2C tools, consumer tools, it's okay to adopt to those changes easily. The changes at times are drastic, but that depends upon how sticky your consumer usage is. Like how frequent do you use Ola Cab to book a cab, right? Pre-COVID, it would be probably once a day if you are a regular customer, or once a week if you are a normal average customers, or once a month in a way. But for the tool that you use, whichever department you belong to, if you're in a sales, you are using a Salesforce kind of tool, Pipedrive kind of tools. If you're in, support, you would use Zendesk, Freshdesk, and other ticket management tool. That's your bread and butter, and you have to live on that. Any kind of changes that you happens over there happens. I mean, it's very, very difficult for the end users to adopt, and it is a very cyclical in nature. And that's why I think the experience building has taken time. And some of the organization has gone with a different version of the product to bring the better experience altogether. And we have seen it with Salesforce altogether, the lighter version, if you have seen. It's all focused on user experience to give an experience about a CRM, a sales CRM. So when it comes, it lacks many points at many aspects, and that's where the Lightning tool comes into picture. Beyond end users, I think change is also difficult for the organizations to make, because these are the bets. The example that Salesforce I was giving you, it's very difficult to make those transition changes. I don't know how many of you are from the IT thing, but we use AWS as a console to manage our infrastructure, right? AWS is our infrastructure product, and that's again a SaaS-based tool. AWS is rolling out a user interface change, and it's probably been 9 to 12 months that they are trying to roll out those changes. And these changes are being rolled out to people who are IT savvy, people like us. We are IT savvy. We know even if you have changed, we know how to figure things out. But the problem is infrastructure is so critical, so critical, that if I want to look for an option which was there for many, many months and it's not there right now, it will be a very, very bad experience. And just to roll out this skin changes, aesthetic changes, and certain experience changes, they have done it incrementally over a period of 9 months. And still there is an option for end user to opt for it or not opt for it. And this is a whole cycle of going on, in which they're collecting feedback. That's how the user experience is difficult. And within this 9 months, they would have launched so many products in their own umbrella, and would have worked on improvising other products to a greater extent. But changing that experience was such a difficult job even for an Amazon and AWS kind of services, where they are dealing with the audience who are like us. And subsequently, that way I see is, I think, for B2B and B2C, when it comes to user experience, it's very, very often to find user experience being posted for consumer companies, because it's easier to access, it's easier to experience, and easier to tell. And for brands and companies, it's actually become a very good arsenal in their kitty for marketing. For B2B company, I think this still holds true. It's not that it doesn't hold true. Just the process is very time consuming. Getting to the voice of customer and building brand just on user experience is just time consuming. It's not that it doesn't exist. We exist for the same particular reasons. We have a competitive advantage on this particular thing, where we compete with incumbents, enterprise companies, where not only the product sucks, but the user experience also sucks. And we try to leverage, but it's a little longish cycle that you have to live with it. And it generally works with the first principle theory. If you know that this is not right for an end user, you won't go ahead and invest time in building such certain features or products in that particular manner. Fourth is an important section, the entire thing. How do we get there? And in this particular thing, I will walk you through certain experiences of building smaller pieces of interactions with customers within WebEngage. Most of the screenshots that you would see are of WebEngage dashboard. As I said, this is a marketing automation tool that we work upon, and integration becomes very important. Any consumer companies want to do this retention marketing has to do all kinds of integration. So if you are a finance company or a banking finance company, you would need to integrate with all your apps, Android, iOS, hybrid, doesn't matter, all the websites, micro websites, all your call centers, offline data warehouses, data lakes, so many things that happens. To do one thing right within this retention marketing that we have created, the data quality. I mean, you may be lacking 20% of the features which are available here and there with your competitors somewhere, but data quality is very, very important. For any businesses to get these integrations correct is a pain, and to identify that pain and have an empathy with that pain is very, very important. Who are the stakeholders? How do you define data quality is 80%? There's no measurement. So the stakeholders, who are the decision makers, would not probably get to know if they use a tool A or tool B, because it's not an A/B experiment. If you're using a tool A, let's say from 2019 to 2021, so many stakeholders would change and another player would be introduced in 2021. There's no clear measurement of data quality in this particular spectrum, but we have to provide that. We have to provide that, and what we do in our case is, when we started this, selling this entire marketing automation tool, we understand that features aside, the most important problem is adoption. And how do we make sure that the developer community, though they are not the target audience for us, we don't sell to developers, but the developers who are doing the integration, whether they are in-house or outsourced, they have a very good experience in integrating. It's a real-time integration. They don't need to rely on us, though we do give them assistance on onboarding, but they don't need to rely manually on us. They have the entire feedback loop in the dashboard available to do all kinds of integrations. And so most of these integrations feedback is real time. In case it is not, be upfront about it, and that's pretty okay. We often dwell with product and UI and UX discussions. In certain sections, in certain aspects, in certain operations, real time makes a lot of difference. But in most of the areas, it's okay not to have a real time experience. It's not to, we don't need to force on real time if it is not required, as long as messaging is correct, as long as the expectations are set. So the important point is to set the expectation for the end user in such a way that when things go right, they know, and when things go wrong, more importantly, when things go wrong, either because of the manual error or the system error, they know it upfront. This is one of the screen where, when integrations happen, they get to see real-time stats, how these things are happening, how the progress is, and we make sure the dashboard is, the functionality of the dashboard is disabled to an extent from the technical perspective as well as from process perspective. Before someone start creating campaigns, they need to make sure their basic sanity is there. Otherwise, you start going into different loops of cycle, understanding where the problem lies. And that essentially boils down to do one thing at a time and do it right. So in the first phase, when you are onboarding such a complex tools, and not only marketing automation, there are tools which are beyond marketing automation. We use a tool called, Natero, which was acquired by Freshdesk. It's called Fresh Success now. And that is another tool which is in the B2B parlance. We are a customer of there, where it integrates a lot many tools in our own ecosystem. It integrates with our BI systems. It integrates with our Salesforce. It integrates with QuickBooks and our Zendesk. So for our account managers who are dealing with their own accounts and own customers, they have a clear view of what is happening, what is not. So if a customer is using a tool but not paying us, that's a red flag. And if customer is not using the tool, that's also a red flag. And to do all these integrations, right, it becomes our job easier once you have a platform which provides these very transparently. There are many sections, we keep on building features, and most of the time we have realized that only 40% of the features are used by companies, but we still keep on building those. A good nugget over here is there are sections when those businesses who are not using those features, give them the glimpses of what they are going to expect from the feature if they try to use it. In this particular example, this is what we released as a feature which allows you to see campaign performance based on tags. And this was pretty simple in a way, it's nothing unusual. You tag your emails in the Gmail and you can search by tags, but you still get to see the emails. But what we did over here is you tag the campaigns and we give you aggregate on the campaigns. That essentially gives them slicing and dicing with any combination and any permutation combination. Over here in the screenshot, it gives you an idea that my reactivation offers are giving me 25% of the revenue. Oh, but my reactivation offers are running across different channels. That essentially means I have never seen this particular view anytime in my life, because I was always looking at the email as a channel and push as a channel. But reactivation as my business process is giving me 25% of the revenue. And new user offers are going 6% of my offers. This is very good business insights, not only about the technical feature, it's a very simple technical feature, but a very good business value addition if used correctly. The problem is, if used correctly, is our problem statement. And how do we make sure that people start tagging it in a meaningful and semantic manner? And that's why what we did is in the dashboard of dashboard section, which becomes the stakeholder section, right? For any B2B, you will have a dashboard which shows the entire summary of what is happening in my domain. In that area, we put this very, very upfront. If you are not tagging it, you should be tagging it to get this value. And this become realistic to showcase what you can do. Instead of showing the blank areas, no data found, please do that, please do this. Another area to market the tools as well.
Perfect stuff, Ankit. Sorry for jumping in. I noticed that we've got like 4 to 5 minutes left on the session today. We've got a couple of questions on chat. So do you have like a couple more slides you want to finish before we...
I can finish it very quickly. I think the how-tos are pretty simple. Again, self-guides, videos, walkthroughs helps, documentations help you. Mm-hmm. This is very important. Within your own B2B tool, right, there are different personas who are going to use the tool. Have those flows very clear in your mind. If a finance guy logs into your tool, his purpose is pretty clear: to look at the invoices, to look at the usage, and to make sure the approval happens. Make sure all nuances are gone out, and based on the profile, try to create those workflows. Try to package offerings as much as possible. 80% of the way people use your tool, be it any vertical, is defined. Try to package them. It becomes easier for people to use it. It becomes easier for you to use it as well. To you to start increasing the utilization of the platform. Again, very simple UX funder. Have a clear primary CTA. Give them a closed feedback loop. I discussed about it earlier as well. If you see the screen, it's very, very complicated. But what someone is trying to do is creating a recurring kind of campaign which repeats in itself. And when someone chooses this option, no one has an idea when it is going to repeat. Show the real-time feedback. This is what you're trying to do. Have an instant gratification wherever possible. For us in our particular domain, it's very important for campaign managers to test it immediately and have the test results shown on the screen itself. And this happens within few seconds. This is the case where we needed immediate real time as much as possible. And we invested a lot on the engineering to make this experience well. Because once they test it, they are pretty okay with it. And then the campaign goes ahead.